Thank you for staying with us in Talking Points. Today we are receiving one of the most courageous and outspoken female politicians in the Republic of Cameroon. Kah Walla Edith is the national president of the Cameroon People's Party, the CPP, and she's also a member of Stand Up for Cameroon Civil Society platform. Madam the President, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Hello to and Happy New Year. I think it's my first time on the platform in 2021. So very happy to be here.
And we're going to be talking about human rights violations and abuse in Cameroon. And the Stand Up for Cameroon is raising an alarm as concerns the increase in human rights violation cases recorded in Cameroon, notably in the two English-speaking regions of the country. As per your findings, what's the situation as of now?
Yes, we Stand Up for Cameroon has created a human rights working group because we get this news piecemeal on your news stations. Today we hear this happened, tomorrow we hear that happened, but we decided to put the statistics together to have a global picture of what is happening, and it is very, very, very concerning. Actually, the crisis is huge in Cameroon. In human rights as a whole, in this report, we have focused on Northwest and Southwest, but we have also focused on Boko Haram. And we have drawn the attention to two other security situations in the country. One is the urban youth gangs, which are growing and which are fed by the crisis, because the kids in the urban youth gangs, some of them are refugees, some of them are IDPs. So the conflicts are feeding urban youth gangs. And finally, the piracy in the Gulf of Guinea, which is also very much linked to the Anglophone crisis. So the numbers are very, very alarming. In 2020, we had over 1,000 violent incidents on the territory of Cameroon. We had over 500 civilians who were killed. Because sometimes when we think of Boko Haram, we feel that Boko Haram is fighting the army, or that armed separatists are fighting the army. No, the majority of violent incidents are actually against civilians. And the report has shown that all three groups, that is Boko Haram, the armed separatists, and the army, are carrying out acts of violence that violate the rights of civilians.
The report which you published today indicates that 1,038, not 10,000 as I indicated earlier, 1,038 cases of violation of human rights were recorded between January 2020 and January 2021. Can you tell us a little more about these figures and other issues highlighted in the report?
Yes. As we've said, these issues are incidents of violence, and most of them, the majority of them, are against civilians. So the report documents, of course, killings. The report documents illegal and arbitrary arrest. What we found is that the government of Cameroon almost systematically violates the law when it comes to arrest. There is a law and a penal code, a criminal code of procedure, and the government, unfortunately, is systematically violating the law when we talk about arrest. So hundreds of people are in jail illegally. Per Cameroonian law, when you violate the law at the moment of arrest, the case is automatically null and void. So normally these people should be released because they were not arrested following proper procedure. We also saw very, very concerning extrajudicial killings. If we take a country like Cameroon, imagine we are just 26 million people. We had, in the same year, we had Ngarbu on the 14th of February. We had Kumba in October, and then we had Ngechewe in December. all of these were mass killings that went, in one case, in Garbu, the army was at fault. In Kumba, it is presumed that armed separatists are at fault. Gechewe is Boko Haram. So we see that all of the groups with arms on the national territory are killing civilians. And the other concerning elements that we have seen in the report, of course, the army shows a pattern. The army extrajudicial killings or attacks, large-scale attacks against civilians, they always occur when separatists go and carry out an attack, and then
there's a response.
Yes,
from the military.
Army responds completely indiscriminately, without checking whether it is the separatists they are actually going after or the civilian population. So most of the army attacks, we see this pattern. Where the separatists are concerned, it is also very, very disturbing, because the separatists have decided to be a judge, jury, and executioner. So most of the separatist killings which they are doing, they do when they suspect somebody to be what they call a blackleg. So
a betrayer.
They decide themselves, we don't know what is their process for deciding that X or Y is somebody who has betrayed their fight, their cause. So they decide on it, they judge it, and then they execute, which is completely unacceptable. And then finally, also with the separatist fighters, very, very concerning in this report is that while all three groups are accused of gender-based violence, all three, so Boko Haram is using women as sex slaves, they are using women as suicide bombers, and in order to keep their constant supply of women, they are kidnapping to be able to feed their supply. The army has been accused of rape, has been accused of violence against women, but very, very concerning are the armed separatists, because the most horrific, atrocious violations of human rights have been committed by the armed separatists against women. So once again, they will decide that a woman, in almost all the cases, they decide that the woman is betraying the cause. Maybe they say she's going out with military officers, or that she's giving information to military officers.
Concerning the military, we should indicate that repeatedly on several occasions, the government authorities have often said the military are professional and they have nothing to do with most of the allegations, except for those that investigations actually proved their involvement, like the Garbu massacre. Now, concerning the separatists, there is a message in that report for pro-independence fighters, civilians who are carrying that gun.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, the message concludes, of course, with recommendations for all of the actors. Where the separatists are concerned, Stand Up for Cameroon reiterates what we have said for the last 4 years, which is that there is an Anglophone problem in Cameroon. There is a historical, political, cultural, economic problem. However, the way to address that problem is not with guns. And the report clearly shows that the armed separatists are doing more harm to the civilian population than to any other person. They are really carrying out a lot of atrocities with regard to the civilian population. Now, with regard to the army, unfortunately, we have to say it point blank, our army lies. Every single time that it is brought to their attention that soldiers have gone in, as we say, it's always in response. They have gone in response, but they have done so indiscriminately, taking in civilians, sometimes women, sometimes children. every time the army is accused of that, their first position is denial. They always, even Garbu, we only got towards the truth. I have to say towards the truth, because we are 1 year away from Garbu. The Garbu anniversary is next week, 14th of February, and to date, nothing has happened with that case. Nothing has actually happened in court. The case has come to court twice, but we have not seen a proper investigation. Government has not even bothered to actually identify next of kin. The Stand Up for Cameroon lawyers who are following up that case are also raising an alarm to say, despite the fact that government admitted that they were wrong in this case, we are not getting justice. I think maybe the final group in the case that
and before you continue with your analysis, another similar case, which is similar to the Garbu massacre, which was highlighted during the press conference by some members and officials of CPP and Stand Up for Cameroon, like Frank Kessie and Bergeline, is this question: what about Wazizi? Where
Absolutely.
is Samuel Wazizi? Till today, the family has not received the corpse. What is happening? Lots of questions around that particular case. Investigations have not spoken anything.
So the first thing we have to say is that this habit, it is really a habit of the Biya regime of not respecting the law at the time of arrest, ends up in catastrophe. Because they do not respect the law, people are held incommunicado, which is against Cameroonian law and against all the international treaties that Cameroon has signed. You are a government, you are a state. You cannot arrest somebody and then we are looking for that person. It is completely unacceptable. And unfortunately, when the government does that, they open the window for what we call the forcibly disappeared. So a state is holding somebody, then that person disappears. This is completely atrocious. So we have the case of Wazizi, which is very, very well known. But in the report, we highlight that there are 71 people to date, 71 people to date, who, upon arrest, their families raised the alarm, saying that we don't know where our person is. We don't know where our people are. We have one of the most recent cases of Mr. John Sama and Mr. Ebot, who are two teachers from here in Douala, arrested one night in the judiciary police here, transferred to Yaoundé. We were looking for Mr. Sama for 43 days. 43 days. Why should a government hold one of its citizens and then we are looking for the person? At that moment, the government becomes, there's no difference, as I told the officials in Yaoundé, because you must know that this report is being used by us to meet with the officials in Yaoundé and confront them on some of these cases. If the government is holding somebody and we are incommunicado, then there's no difference between government and Ambas groups. Because when Ambas kidnaps somebody, we start calling around to say, oh, do you think the person might be here, or do you think a government is behaving in the same way? You have somebody in government custody, but we are calling, looking for the person, as if the person is being held by a rogue group. So the Biya regime is really comporting itself as a rogue state when it comes to these arrests, and right. It's causing these disappearances. And
we still have journalists like Njoka Kingsley and others who are still in detention till today.
Absolutely.
Even though they have denied any wrongdoing, they are still being in detention, some of them qualified as terrorists and so on by officials of the Ministry of Defense. Now, what about the members of Stand Up for Cameroon, who have been in detention for several months now?
Yes, we have 4 members of Stand Up for Cameroon who were arrested as they were leaving a meeting at Stand Up for Cameroon. That meeting was held by leaders of Stand Up for Cameroon. It was not, those leaders were not arrested. 4 young men were arrested as they left, and those 4 young men are in New Bell prison up to now when we are speaking to you. And this was around the time of the march of the 22nd of September, except they were arrested on the 18th, before a march ever took place. As you know, we are counting 139 people still in jail. About over 500 people were arrested during that march, and 139 of them are still in jail as we speak. So our 4 colleagues are in New Bell prison with close to 70 members of the CRM, and the CRM has other people around the country in Yaoundé, in Bafoussam, who were arrested during that march. Now, once again, this is illogical. Mr. Kamto is the president of CRM. He called for the march. He was put under house arrest. His house arrest has been lifted. Why do you keep people who are followers, people who did not, they were not leaders, they were not organizers, they responded to a call? They are still in prison. Mr. Kamto, his house arrest has been lifted. Normally, as his house arrest was lifted, everybody associated to that march should have been released from jail. In the first place, they should never have been arrested. Because we are talking about non-violent marching. Yes?
They're said to be under judicial examination.
What kind of judicial examination, Mr. Babila? We must be careful. These are human beings that we are talking about. I don't know if you've ever been to a prison in Cameroon. You would not like to spend hours there, not to talk of days or weeks or months. What judicial examination are they under? People who never committed an act of violence. People who were responding to a call of a political party. That political party is the known entity. Under the law of Cameroon, that political party has a right to political expression of their point of view, and that includes protest marching. Why are these young men in jail? Young men and women, because there are a few women inside. Up to date, September to we are February, have just entered February. What is government of Cameroon investigating that they have not yet determined? For people who never carried a gun or a knife or a stick even.
Now, before we go, have you been told the crime that your members committed, or the members of Stand Up for Cameroon who were arrested because they were arrested after a meeting? Were they arrested for attending the meeting?
It is a complete paradox to us, because a complete mystery to us, because they are charged with conspiracy for rebellion, for terrorism, and we are wondering, if people attended a meeting, why then is everybody who attended that meeting not arrested? Why do you arrest 4 people? Let us be clear, Mr. Babila. The Biya regime uses arrest as a political tool to fight its political opponents, to instill fear in the hearts of Cameroonians. It is not about those 4 boys. It is about passing a message that if you are a member of Stand Up for Cameroon, then your life is in danger, in the hopes that people will therefore then not join us at Stand Up for Cameroon. Unfortunately for the Biya regime, they keep committing actions which bring Cameroonians to move towards the opposition.
Kah Walla, Edith, National President of the Cameroon People's Party, CPP, member of Stand Up for Cameroon Civil Society Platform. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, and I would just say thank you to all the civil society organizations who do the work on the ground. CHRDA, REDAC, Nouveau Droit de l'Homme, Mandela Center. It is the reports of these people who work on the ground that we have used to compile our own report, and we must say a huge thank you to them for the daily work they do.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. Equinox War is up next.